Greetings and well met, my friends. Yoiston here for another Westernesse podcast, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. I am joined today once again by my good friend Royan. Royan, take it away.
Hello.
So, we're excited to be back for the fourth one here, and we've got a new segment to try out today, so without further ado, unless, Royan, you have something to say, we can jump right into it.
You keep telling me to take it away every week or every month, and I got nothing else to say other than hello.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, so we'll jump into our new segment here first. So every month we'll talk about kind of what happened in Middle-earth during this month. So today we're going to look at August, and we went ahead and used the timeline from the Lord of the Rings Project.com. I'll link in the description. And they have a very comprehensive timeline going through from the first age to the end of the third age, or even the beginning of the fourth. So we looked for August events, and really only three things came up. And all of these events that happened in August happened in 3019 of the third age. So on the 10th of August, the funeral of Theoden King is held outside of Edoras. And we'll just kind of go through and break each one down. So this is kind of a moment in the Lord of the Rings, which is kind of nice, but doesn't happen too often, where the heroes can kind of sit down and actually mourn. They can mourn their losses from the War of the Ring. What are your thoughts about it, Ryan?
Well, this month has a lot of different stuff that doesn't actually appear in the films, which are the most mainstream Lord of the Rings content. So I think it's really good that we get to talk about it. As for the funeral of Theoden, I do agree. It's a big mourning time for all of our heroes, and it's something that I feel like goes oh my gosh, words. Unfocused on, for lack. Yeah. I'm forgetting words. But in the series is there's a lot of focus on the character buildings and their inner turmoils, but there's not a whole lot going on for their mourning of other characters. And I think this is a big one where everyone gets to sit back because the war is over at this point, and they get to just mourn everything that they've lost. And
yeah,
I mean, they had saved pretty much everyone's bacon, so it's a hard loss.
Yeah, and I think even a lot of the heroes of Gondor were there as well. A lot of people respected Theoden King, and now that there wasn't a war to fight, now that Aragorn was king of Gondor and Arnor at this time, he was able to go alongside. I think Faramir was there, Éowyn, probably Prince Amrahil. I'd have to look at that one. I'm not exactly sure, but just a lot of different characters were there and able to kind of pay their respects to Theoden. And he would be the last mound outside of Edoras for his direct line. Éomer would start the third direct line of kings in Rohan, because Helm Hammerhand ended the first one, and then Theoden ended the second, and then Éomer, the nephew, would start the third. So yeah, just a really kind of interesting, kind of sorrowful moment, but it's good that the characters could kind of mourn their losses. So 5 days later, August 15th, we have Treebeard releases Saruman from Orthanc. Now, this would obviously lead to problems down the road with the scurrying of the Shire. And if Treebeard had kind of kept Saruman in Isengard, at least for even a bit longer, because as we know, our heroes eventually go back up to Isengard soon after Treebeard releases Saruman. And they could have had another confrontation with them, possibly prevented more lives from being lost in the Shire, but Treebeard didn't like to see things caged up, so he released Saruman. What are your thoughts about it?
When I look at this, I honestly think it's just Treebeard being the bigger man than Saruman is.
Yeah.
Throughout the Legendarium, he's kind of known as the guy who just likes to cage up other people and other problems like that and just let them stew, as he does with Gandalf and all them.
That makes sense.
And I think this is a great foil moment from a literary perspective, where you have Treebeard, who is kind of this uncorruptible nature point of view, and you just see like it's clear that like this is what he values is freedom and things like that, and it's also what Saruman aims to take away. And I think that's what Treebeard hopes, is that if he releases Saruman, Saruman can see the error in his ways and go off and try to improve himself for the rest of his time in Middle Earth. But clearly that does not happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like what you said about the foil, about the juxtaposition between Treebeard and Saruman himself, just as characters. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, would Treebeard be... well, he would still be better than Saruman, I guess, in a lot of ways if he kept him locked up. But still, when it comes down to the core values, nature likes to be free. It doesn't like to really cage anything up and just kind of let loose. And that's, exactly how Treebeard is with Saruman. But since he was the fallen wizard, he was, the second most evil thing to Sauron. He wanted to control, he wanted to dominate, to be that tyrant. So last on our timeline here is August 28th. Gandalf and the four hobbits actually overtake Saruman on the road north. When they're journeying north back to Eriador, back to Rivendell and the Shire, after the War of the Ring, they come across Saruman and Wormtongue on the road, and then Frodo and his companions go to Rivendell while Saruman heads straight for the Shire. This is a very interesting moment too, because they were all aware of Saruman's evil doings and his evil deeds. They could have chained him up there. They could have executed him. They could have done whatever it was, but they didn't. They kind of respected Treebeard's decision to let him go, to let him at least have his freedom. And maybe they even underestimated him to some degree. They underestimated what he was doing and what he was capable of still, with like being that broken wizard. But what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's a point where I do like where you were going with the underestimation. I honestly think that if I was in the position of the hobbits and Gandalf, I'd probably feel the same way, where it's like, the war is over, so you kind of have this like peacetime, this like you fought so hard for this peace that you don't really want to just start fighting again for no reason. And I think that they're hoping that Saruman will just take the hint that Sauron just got completely wasted. So
that's true.
Maybe he shouldn't try anything.
Maybe he'll turn a new leaf, kind of thing,
Was Saruman already headed for the Shire, or did he get the idea to go to the Shire from seeing the hobbits again?
I think he was already headed there, up to Bree, the Shire kind of area. But I'm sure after seeing the hobbits, he was like, you know what? I'm heading exactly for the Shire. Probably exactly Bag End, too. Just
to stick it to Frodo.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously he had his operations already running in the north as far as the Shire, the North Farthing, up kind of close to Evendim, and all the east, and even as far as Bree. He had all of his minions kind of doing the dirty work up there, but he was
his
probably
cronies.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, after seeing the hobbits, he was probably just like, you know what, the Shire is my priority at this point. It kind of already was, right? But again, like, he could have gone to all these other places. He could have gone to Bree. He could have gone to just these. I think Oatbarton is canon. I know it's in Lord of the Rings Online, but he could have
where
gone
most of our geography knowledge comes from.
Yeah, exactly. He could have gone to any number of places, the South Farthing, where all the pipeweed comes from, but he chose, Bag End. Let's go. So I'm sure it definitely probably contributed to at least his desire for vengeance, just to his rage for him wanting to just go to exactly the Shire. But yeah. So cool. Well, yeah, so that's all we have this month. Again, not much happened in August throughout all of the Legendarium, but I tell you what, September, next month, we'll have quite a few pieces of discussion. We'll probably have to kind of glaze over a few of them because a lot happens in September.
Oh, will we jump in back to 3018 for September? Nick?
Oh, yeah, even 30.
I think we should do that because if you look at that one, there's a lot going on.
Even 3001, where Bilbo has his 111th birthday, all that kind of stuff. So we'll jump into that next month. We'll just kind of go through the bigger topics of September. But, all right. Cool. Yeah, I hope you guys all liked that segment. Let us know your thoughts about it in the comments. So last month we were talking about Born of Hope and The Hunt for Gollum. We wanted to kind of go back through now that so you've seen them at this point, right?
I have seen them.
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to hear your thoughts now that you've seen the other end of them. What are your thoughts on these fan made films about Middle Earth?
I like them a lot. There's moments in both films where it's clear that like this is fan made. It's not made for profit. They make that very clear at the beginning, and I think that's really noble.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it could be really easy to just try to cash out on a fandom, but I really respect the directors and the producers for making sure that this is a non-profit fan made, just kind of like reveling in the lore. And I really actually enjoyed a Born of Hope. It got a little bit slow for me there, but it really I actually really after finishing the movie, I actually really respect the detail that it goes into, and just kind of stepping through each point of Arathorn's life, they don't really go over his early life, but
his from like the middle of his life to the end of it. It definitely highlights what Aragorn was up against even before he was born, right? Like as a kid, that his kin were all scattered and slain. You know, it really highlights just how much work Aragorn would have to do in his life to kind of bring unity back to the kingdom, how many enemies he would have just even as a kid, and how it was necessary for him to be raised in Rivendell.
Yeah, and just how many people want him dead just because of who he is, not because of what he does.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, what do you think about The Hunt for Gollum?
I was pleasantly surprised by this one. It's a lot shorter of a film.
Yeah. And
I don't know how they did it, but the CGI for Gollum itself is actually not bad. I was not expecting a whole lot, and I think that the reason why this film is so short is because a lot of the budget had to go to that, because it's clear that they put a lot of work in, and they did a really, really great job with it.
Yeah. Sorry, go for it.
Kind of contrasting Born of Hope, the number of named characters in The Hunt for Gollum, I think, is like sub 10.
You're right. We have Gandalf, Aragorn, like
there's the Gollum, and then there's the ranger that he meets in the forest.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that the cast list is not long.
See, and that's something I really respect about that film. It knew what it was. It knew what the narrative was that it wanted to tell. It wasn't, it didn't need to be long or any of that. It just needed to get Aragorn from point A to point B with Gollum getting captured in it, Mm-hmm. Have you perchance at least even heard of, on YouTube, there's a fan film about Darth Maul. It's like 10 minutes, but it's kind of generally the same thing where it's like, all right, we got to get Darth Maul from point A to point B from.
Is it trying to get him from the Apprentice to where he appears in the Clone Wars saga?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like, he's still Apprentice. It's like pre-Phantom Menace, but he's still like, it's just to show how evil he was before Phantom Menace.
Okay.
And it's like just to see again that character development. Same kind of thing for Hunt for Gollum. And that's kind of something that is nice about it being a nonprofit. It's like we have this story. We don't want to make it longer for big theaters or anything like that to pick it up. We just want to tell the small narrative and do it justice, right? It's as long or short as it has to be. So I really respect that. So final thoughts about it? Ratings?
Oh, I mean, I don't know about ratings. I'm not a film critic.
That's fair.
Both were incredibly enjoyable. If you're looking for just something if you really want to delve deeper into the lore and other things that you probably don't know before, I'd really suggest checking out Born of Hope, because it's really big into playing into that intermedium points where I don't know how much of it is kind of improv from the filmmaker's perspective versus straight canon, but there's just a lot going on in there, and you can have a lot of fun with that. If you're just looking for just a short kind of just reveling in some fan films, like you don't have to dedicate like more than half an hour to it, then The Hunt for Gollum is just a great treat, I think.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll jump into the meat of this video, I guess. So yeah, like for the past few months now, we've been talking. I think the first one we kind of generalized our favorite parts about the Legendarium, even maybe some things that we don't understand as much or don't necessarily agree with, as small and few as they were. And then ever since then we've been kind of delving more into detail. So I think we've talked about this a bit before, but now I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts about our favorite Middle Earth video games. And I think for the sake of for this video, we can kind of cut out a lot of our Lord of the Rings Online discussion, because obviously, right, for me, that's my favorite Middle Earth game. I don't know about you.
Yep.
Right. And there's just so much that's great about it. I think we've touched on the game every podcast. So I think our thoughts about it are pretty much out there. We can talk about it more later if people want that. But what are you, besides Lord of the Rings Online, what's your favorite Middle Earth game?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to tell you guys about Lord of the Rings Conquest. Now, if any of you have played Battlefront 1 and 2, the original first two Battlefront games, Pandemic Studios was the developer on those games, and if you ask me, they did a fantastic job. Lord of the Rings Conquest is made by the same developers. Why haven't you heard of this before? Or if you have, you may have some pre-made conceptions about this game. Well, the reason why I love this game is strictly for the local multiplayer aspect. Yeah. Now, the game is not an attestment to like the Lord of the Rings lore. I would say it's not an outstanding storytelling game, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. This game came out in 2009 on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Nintendo DS, and PC. So if you have like an old Xbox 360 and you're really looking for like I don't know how much you can get it for. I'm sure you can get it from somewhere for like $10 or whatever.
Honestly, I've been actually recently looking around for this game more, but it's kind of getting rare because EA, doesn't even like care to support it anymore, obviously. So I'm getting there. It's published by EA, by the way. So if any of you guys are in the gaming scene, that probably means something to you. I have the game. I still have it. I still keep it because I love it so much. So the reason why this game is good is because you can load up and it's like Battlefront from the Star Wars. Mm-hmm. There's different game modes that you can do on a list of different maps, and you basically could just jump in. There's two armies that are fighting each other, and then if you're playing story mode, you have a list of objectives to complete. But if you're playing just local multiplayer, you have one objective to complete, whether it be like just straight deathmatch, like just take out as many people as you can, or if it's like in the Battlefront series, you're capturing like little posts and stuff like that. I forget. I think it's called that game mode's called Conquest. Yeah. And then there's the all-time favorite, War of the Ring, which is a capture the flag game, with the one ring. So it's just this giant one ring that spawns in the middle of the map. Your NPCs and you can both pick it up. And this game, if you're playing one-on-one, like with someone in local multiplayer, if you play this right, this game can go on for a while. So one of the things that I used to do with my brother is I'd play War of the Ring on Mines of Moria. We'd both play archers and nothing else, and we were not allowed to pick up the ring. Oh my.
So
that would take forever. Your
objective was because the headshots are just completely broken in this game. Your objective was to headshot as many as the other team's players and just try to like push your people forward. It was so much fun. It's honestly one of those games where it's like, it's not a great game from a critical standpoint.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not outstanding shining light in the multiplayer video game series. But if you're looking for a good time with some friends locally, this is the game for you.
Yeah, I have so many like good memories. A few maybe negative memories with that game. It's just like because again it was kind of broken a little bit.
Yeah, that was my next point. Is that so? Why is this game not why is this game not the best game that's ever been created like Battlefront 2 is? So the reason why is that Pandemic Studios, the creator of like 2 massive hits, and then they were making this game. Well, EA ran them out of business in the middle of development for this game. So the rest of the development was, I believe, completed by Behavior Interactive. It was kind of rushed out the door. Yeah. And so it's not balanced. So of the 4 classes that you can play, one of them is called, I think it's called the Scout. Mm-hmm. I don't remember his exact name, but it's basically just an assassin. Now, how is this person unbalanced? Well, you can go invisible, which at first seems kind of OP, but it's really not that bad because you can still kind of see where they're moving.
Yeah, if you're really paying attention, doing like area of effect kind of hits, you can find them.
Yeah, the real stinger is that while this character is invisible, if he gets behind you, he has 1 button push for an insta kill on anything. And I'm serious when I mean anything.
Oh, I can't remember, right? Like, I feel like I did this to my brother when I was playing it like years ago. I've
definitely done this to my brother.
But could you do it with a Balrog? I can't remember. Like Durin's Bane, could you one-shot him? I can't remember. I think you can.
Yes, you can, because you can do it. So, like Battlefront, you can, if you get enough points, you get promoted to a like a hero, and it's just a bunch of different characters from the movie. So, one of them is Durin's Bane. My favorite one is Sauron. If you play on Rivendell, you can play as Sauron, and it's really funny when my little brother is playing Sauron and I sneak up behind him with an elven scout, and you just watch Sauron get bent over and stabbed in the back. 1 hit KO.
And he's like, he's the like
War of the Ring is done.
It's like the size of like 2 people, you know? So getting bent over the knee, it's just like, oh my god.
It looks like a bad Skyrim mod.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I did that with my brother all the time. He got so mad. Yeah.
This is not a competitive gaming experience. This is not a if you're looking for a story based or something. This is a beat 'em up. Yeah. Especially the story mode, because you can go through waves of people.
Oh, yeah. And see, and that's one thing, like, you know, I have my problems with Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, all of those games. But just for like lore-based reasons and theme-based reasons, but even for Conquest, right? It never bothered me because it felt so close, even to like at least more to Peter Jackson's version of the movies, of the Lord of the Rings movies, which I still, you know, almost completely agree with.
I don't know about that, because the first mission in the campaign, you play as Aragorn and you fight outside the Deeping Wall in the hole to try to hold it.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
Well, I think it happened in the movies, though, right?
No, it did not. He was inside.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought in the movies, like, he tossed Gimli, right? And that was like outside of the Deeping Wall.
No. He's on the ground in the hole made by the bomb. The Deeping Wall,
that's fair.
Not the steps up. Now, this game, you got to take it for what it is at face value. It's a poorly produced, like 7 out of 10, maybe, as from a production standpoint, video game. But if you are in just for some fun, 11 out of 10 every time.
Oh yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like there might be some lore. Again, it might not feel like the greatest Lord of the Rings game out there, because it's not.
It also does not take itself seriously, which is kind of really important.
Exactly. And the campaign for the Free Peoples, I like it. It's mostly, it's from, like you said, Battle of Helm's Deep, so like end of Two Towers, and then like through the Return of the King up to the battle at the Black Gate and the destruction of the One Ring. And I like how they do all those missions, but I also like the evil campaign where it's like, Well, what if Frodo failed at the end and like the One Ring, you took the One Ring from Frodo right before you destroyed it, or right before Gollum jumped in and destroyed it. But
the first mission of the evil campaign is you're playing as a ring wraith and you go and kill Frodo. It's amazing.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh my god, it's pretty sad. It is pretty sad. But then after that, it's like it's just you're cleaning house as like Sauron's lackey
all the way to the Shire.
Oh yeah, yeah. The end, you invade the Shire. You can play
there.
Yeah, you can play as. I think you can play as both Sauron and the Balrog in that one mission. Just like
I think you're Sauron first, and then later you become the Balrog, so you can turn the place to the ground.
Yeah. Oh yeah. See, and that's what I mean. It's honestly, that story mode, the evil story mode, is like one of the best. Like almost fan fiction theories on what if Sauron got the One Ring back. Like that's probably honestly how it would go.
There would not be like a great cinematic masterpiece. It'd just pretty much be him like sweeping up the Free Peoples.
Yeah, battle
from east to west.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I really love that game, and I actually really miss playing it. So I'm gonna start looking around, see if I can find a version of it as well.
Dude, I still got it.
I think I have it. I think I have it on 360, but I can't remember where I think my 360's like. I don't know where it is. It's gone. I think we still have it somewhere, but yeah. So I want to look around for it, see if I can get it on my computer again. But yeah. Any final thoughts about that game?
I don't know if you still can buy it. Like,
yeah,
I'm sure it's on eBay for some stupid price, but I mean, if you have it, or if you have like easy access to it, and if you have played it before, or even if you haven't, like, and you're just looking for something to do on a lazy afternoon, you got some mates around, this is it.
Yeah, dude, yeah. Cool. Well, I'll jump into my favorite games, I guess, of just like all the Middle Earth franchise and stuff. And besides Lord of the Rings Online, mine have to be the Battle for Middle Earth games. 1, 2, Rise of the Witch King, and the Edain mod, as well as a few other mods that I like to play. But just the variants on that strategic game are brilliant for the most part. For those of you who haven't played it, it's more like if you've played Rise of Nations, Age of Mythology, Age of Empires, those kind of strategic move your armies around, kind of figure out a way.
It's called RTS, real-time strategy game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it is.
StarCraft.
StarCraft. Yeah, exactly. It's like all those games, but completely Middle Earth themed. So you can choose armies from, Rohan, Gondor, Mordor, Isengard, the elves, the dwarves, all these different factions. And you have their heroes, their units, their siege weapons, their castles, all of these kind of things. And you clash against another one. It doesn't, like, you can set it up in more of a skirmish sandbox mode and just have men versus elves, see what would kind of happen there and how the units do. And then you also have power points, right, where you can put it towards getting like a Balrog or the army of Oathbreakers, the army of the dead. And then you just like have to be strategic about how you clash these armies, all of that. Yeah, they're all really great. Even especially the campaign modes. I grew up mostly playing multiplayer with my family on that game, but I went through the campaigns as well for the most part. I think I still have to go completely through the Rise of the Witch King campaign, but which is, I love the Fall of Arnor, that whole story. So that'll be fun. But yeah, they're all really, really good and well thought out in how you kind of play through these missions. So you like Battle for Middle Earth, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I played Battle for Middle Earth 2 on, I think, multiple different platforms. I remember with the PowerPoints, once you got Galadriel, the game was over.
Yeah. Galadriel with the One Ring. Oh yeah.
It was just, I remember the story mode. I was so bad at this game because I was playing this a long time ago. Yeah. But I remember the last mission of, I think it's the good campaign for elves.
Mm-hmm.
you siege Dol Guldur, and I had no idea how to break into that base, so I went for just the sure shot long con, and I just made eagles.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'd spawn a thing of eagles, and I'd just go tell them to go take out a catapult or a tower. And I did that. It took me about 2 hours, but I beat the mission because I just took out every single tower, and then I just stormed it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's how I won.
Yeah, that must have taken forever. Oh yeah. If you haven't checked out these games, you definitely give them a shot. Now, I will say that they're mostly based in Peter Jackson's version of the Legendarium, so hopefully that doesn't turn anyone off. And even if you're not the biggest fan of Jackson's version, there are definitely mods out there. Again, my biggest shout out to like the mods goes to the E. Dane mod. These guys have been working on this mod for many years, ever since I think even like the first Hobbit movie came out. So that was 2012. So 6 years they've been working on this mod for a game that's like over a decade old. And it's incredible. They implement a lot of story characters and a lot of different, even more factions, even more heroes and all of that. So yeah, definitely check those out. Yeah. Now we can just kind of go through some other games.
Now that we're off our soapboxes for the best game.
yeah, exactly. Did you ever play the Return of the King RPG?
Nope.
It was so good. There are a bunch of memes that I've seen recently where it's just like, rest in peace to the many days that I lost playing this game. It's so true. Basically, it's the Return of the King story. I think it even starts at the end of the Two Towers as well, probably at Helm's Deep.
Well, if it's the Return of the King, it probably starts. Okay, never mind. Go ahead.
No, well, I think like it's like the prologue is like at the end of the Two Towers kind of thing.
Well,
so it's like
this is an old boy, 2003.
Yeah. So I mean, I think like the game itself starts like, Return of the King, but again, the prologue, it's like you got the Battle of Helm's Deep. Why not just use it? Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was so good. You talk to anyone who played it, it's really good.
This game is scored really, really well.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, you can play. You're in the body of all these different heroes, right? So you can be Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Faramir, Gandalf, Sam. Can't remember. I think you can be Frodo. And they all have like their special abilities, and they're going through all these missions from the Return of the King movie, especially.
Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Frodo, Sam, Faramir, Pippin, and Merry are all unlockable characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, you're doing all these, and you're fighting the siege of Minas Tirith. It's incredible. So if anyone can ever find that game out there and play it, please do. Please, you won't regret it. And I think it has a predecessor in the Two Towers, and man, maybe even I think there was a Fellowship of the Ring one. I didn't get into those two as much as the Return of the King, but yeah, all of those like games based on the movies were really good. Let's see, there was also the Hobbit video game. Now this was like early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, before the Hobbit trilogy was even thought of,
It's cartoony.
Oh yeah, it's really cartoony. It's really and I think it was built for kids as was the book, right? But if you can kind of get through those things, it's a fantastic tale, and it's a different telling, right? It's a different telling than we get with Jackson's version, which is nice. Again, it was before the movie, so it was built completely on the Hobbit movie from the 70s, 80s. Like maybe it drew some inspirations from there, but I think it was almost totally built on the book, the Hobbit book. So yeah, again, if you can look past the cartooniness and the childness of it all, then it's fantastic. Let's see, and then there was another one I wanted to mention. It's called War in the North. Ryan, have you played that one?
I have not, but there was. I am actually looking into this game. I'm thinking about. I'm going to try it out pretty soon. This was a game that I actually almost bought and played years and years ago.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of forgot about it. It's available on Steam. So if you're looking for it, you can grab it pretty easily. I think it's $30. Let me check.
Yeah, I played. So I like you. I kind of played it. Well, yeah, I actually jumped into it, man, almost 10 years ago or something when it came out, 2007, 2008, something like that. But I never got through it. I never played through the whole thing. I think it got too difficult for me, and I was pretty young back then, so I was like, okay, I'll just maybe do it later. And I actually played through it last year, about this time last year. And it was really good. Again, there are a few moments lore-wise that I'm just like, but again, because this is the difference between it and like the lore with Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, it follows the themes. And it can change. I mean, it can like add its own story. It shouldn't change the canon, and it really doesn't. It takes a shot at answering the question, like, why doesn't, Frodo fly the eagles? I think somebody straight up asks Gandalf that, and he's like, it's not their mission, or it wouldn't be stealthy or something like that. But yeah, you interact with these story characters, and then you also go off on your own story as a dwarf ranger and a elven lore master. So it's so much fun. Mechanics can be they could be tweaked, they could be improved, but the story, as far as I'm concerned, is really good. It's really pretty well done. Again, few moments of magic, few things that are kind of different that I'm just meh on. But yeah, I think it'll be my next lore review on my main channel. So a lot of people have requested for that. But yeah, no, Ryan, definitely look into it. It's a fun one.
$20 on Steam. So $20. There you go.
Yeah. So if anyone has the opportunity to play that, go for it. It's a good one. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely other Lord of the Rings games out there. I'm trying to think of some. I think that's it. Like, for the ones that come to mind, the biggest Lord of the Rings games.
Those are all my favorites, pretty much.
Yeah. I'm going to check my Steam real fast.
There's the Lego game that we did not talk about. If you're into the Lego games, this is one of the more recent ones, so it's kind of following those themes. I personally prefer the older version ones where they did not speak, and that was kind of like the gimmick. But if you're into the Lego games, I'm sure you've already heard of Lord of the Rings, because it came out about the time The Hobbit was coming out in theaters. Mm-hmm. So that's not surprising at all. There's a couple of the older Xbox, GameCube games that I've never played or heard of.
Yeah, exactly. There are definitely a few older ones. But I like the Lego Lord of the Rings. I haven't really played the Lego Hobbit games, but I'm sure they're good as well. Really, a lot of the games that come out of Lego are pretty good. For the most part. There is one last mod that I did want to mention. So this is for Medieval 2 Total War. Total War, like this game was definitely, like, it's an older one, but I actually got this game because I heard about this fantastic mod for it where it gets rid of all like the real life scenarios and the maps and all that stuff, and it puts you completely in Middle Earth with Middle Earth factions. I played this game, this one match. I had to play it over a couple of days, and it was like 20 hours long. I was Rohan, and I was trying to, make alliances with other factions of the Free Peoples, and trying to, take Middle Earth back from Sauron and all that. Oh my gosh, it was so complicated, but it was so much fun. So.
The mod, so it's Medieval 2 Total War, and the mod is called Third Age.
Third Age, yeah, there it is. Yeah, thanks for checking on that. It's really a good one. Rowan, if you're ever looking for another Middle Earth strategy game, I'd check it out if I were you. It's really good. So, any final thoughts? Any final games that we haven't really mentioned?
Lord of the Rings Online.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings Online. It's really good.
If you want WoW meets Lord of the Rings meets good development.
True.
A grade development. this is the game.
Oh yeah.
I realize WoW expansion just came out. You're probably just getting back into that. If you get tired of that storyline, you just want to jump back into Middle Earth. That's the game.
Let me just hype it up even a little bit more for just like a minute or two here. I've just seen some of the beta footage for the next update in Lord of the Rings Online, and it's taking us into the Grey Mountains and the wastes of Fordwaith?
Fordwaith?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
The wastes of Fordwaith, and basically we're chasing after. I think the story is going to be a large part, and we're chasing after Nori, one of the dwarves from Thorn's expedition, and he went to go reclaim a lost dwarven hull in the Grey Mountains from dragons, from cold drakes. And we're like chasing after him because it's a terrible idea, and he's just going to probably go get, slaughtered. So we're heading up there from Erebor, from Mirkwood and Lake Town and Dale after the War for the Ring. So it's really, really a great game. Really cool quests going on.
I can't wait for this expansion. Can't wait.
And now, Ryan, I don't think we've ever talked about this before. Did you hear, there was like news early 2000s before LOTR was ever created that there was going to be a different Middle Earth online game. And then Turbine took it over and they made LOTR out of it. Did you ever hear about that?
Nope.
I was reading an article on it the other day because I remember hearing about it years ago and I forgot about it and kind of came up in my Facebook feed again. And ultimately what this was going to be was a story set in the Fourth Age, but like after the War of the Ring, and you could choose any race of the Free Peoples. So like you have in LOTR, but you could also be a servant of Sauron. You could also be an orc.
Ooh.
Orc, whatever it was. And then it was kind of more going to be, at least in theory, like Skyrim, where you kind of go around, you make your own factions. You can fight people that you just want to, you could run around fighting hobbits in the Shire and kind of doing your thing, seeing the fallout after the defeat of Sauron in the Fourth Age. And yeah, it'd be a sandbox mode, kind of just where you're kind of making your own story. You could set up shop someplace, almost like a Grand Theft Auto 5 of Middle Earth. I think
it sounds cool.
Yeah, it definitely. I'm happy we got LOTR over it because just the story and the main quest that went alongside the Fellowship of the Ring through the Return of the King is just fantastic. And now I'm happy that we're kind of exploring into that unknown territory where Standing Stone's games that runs LOTR they can take it in their own direction while still remaining true to Tolkien's works, while remaining true to Middle Earth. But yeah, it's definitely interesting what they had going for it. And I would have I'm curious if in the future somebody takes on a project like that, it would be really cool to kind of see where you can make your own sandbox mode within Middle Earth and see kind of what goes down. I don't think it would have been as interesting as LOTR, but
Elder Scrolls 6 Middle Earth.
Yeah, confirmed.
I've been seeing all these 20-minute analyses on the 20-second teaser trailer they gave at E3. That's what they meant. They're going to Middle Earth next. You heard it here first.
That would be so cool. I've always kind of been into the idea if Bethesda took on Middle Earth. I would honestly love to see a Skyrim-esque game set in the First Age, set in the time of the Silmarillion, eventually made by Bethesda. That would be so freaking cool. Oh my god! Imagine just running around Beleriand, it'd be a high elf, this man, dwarf, orc, servant of a Balrog kind of thing, just running around doing your thing. It would be so cool. Yeah, and lastly, before we move on to the next one, now that we're talking about kind of games that went under, did you ever hear about the White Council?
Nope.
Game. It was when we were a lot younger. It was going to come out probably over a decade ago, and I think you would play as Gandalf or some wizard, and you would run around again, kind of like a sandbox mode for Middle Earth. You'd run around Middle Earth, do quests in all these different areas. But I think it went under.
It's another EA game.
Yeah.
February 2007, they put it on hiatus for an indefinite amount of time. RIP.
Yeah, it looked really cool. That would have been cool to see what they would have come up with. But yeah, who knows? And maybe in the future we'll get some of these games that kind of went under, or new ones.
Or just something coming from the same, like vein.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, now that we've gone through our favorite Middle Earth games. Now let's see. We're gonna start to wrap it up with the news coming out of Lord of the Rings for this month. A few weeks ago, the writers were announced. At least some of the writers were announced for the Amazon TV show. They are Star Trek 4 writers. I've got an article about it. I'll link it in this description here. But yeah, writers J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay hired on to the big budget series, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Cool. Yeah, so I'm not sure what to expect of that, really. I mean, that they're... that one of their only projects that they've ever worked on so far is still untitled, and like it's still not released yet. I'm not sure what to expect.
So I read an article about this today that for both of these writers, their credits include the upcoming Star Trek 4 and then Disney's Jungle Cruise movie adaptation. They don't have any credits for TV before this, which could seem like a problem, but at the same time, none of Game of Thrones writers did either.
That's true. That's fair. Yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, I don't know what to expect with this. Just hoping for the best. And I mean, if they worked with J.J. Abrams, I think J.J. is a fantastic director. So I'm pretty hopeful about what they're going to do. Again, it's just the biggest thing with these kind of top tier actors, at least from Hollywood and all of that. This is going to be a big production, a big show, right? And I just don't want them to do it for the money. I don't want them to do it for, just for the spectacle of it all. I want them to tell a narrative that's worth telling. That in modern society and in future society, that we kind of need this story to, I don't know, to just reflect on it. Just like with the Lord of the Rings, it's one that's timeless, and that's kind of what I want this to be. I don't want it to just be a Game of Thrones ripoff set in Middle Earth because everybody knows Middle Earth with dragons and wizards and hobbits. I want this to be definitely in depth, right? So I hope these writers have done their research, have done their background checks and all that kind of stuff on Middle Earth. I hope they're not just new to the franchise. Otherwise, it's kind of a red flag, at least for this.
Find that hard to believe that they would be.
Yeah. So I doubt they're new to any of it, And by the least, I'm sure they've at least seen the movies. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
Not really. I mean, I feel like this news coming out about the writers is not. I don't think it's any cause to be concerned in any way. I don't think it's any cause to be excited or like. I mean, I could see you're excited. I mean, it's exciting because we now have like writers, and it's like more and more of this comes together.
Yeah.
But I mean, the two productions that they have worked on are for Paramount and Disney. These are massive production companies. They don't allow just anybody in.
That's true.
You have to have some kind of talent or like you have to work really, really, really hard. And I'm confident that they're more than ready for the task. I don't think it does seem like this show is an answer to HBO's Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I don't think they don't need to compete because Game of Thrones, remember, is ending. Like, we're not going to have Game of Thrones. And
that's true.
There's news of a spin-off series coming, and we don't know how that's going to perform. Yeah, so that could completely flop. So I don't think that Amazon has any grounds trying to just go after Game of Thrones because, again, that series is over. You could go wherever you want to go. You can take on whichever audience that you want to take on. And I think that their target audience is going to be very, very large. So this is going to be a production that is not going to be too alienating like Marvel movies. It's going to be like they're going to be
pretty widespread. Yeah.
Widespread. They're going to try to appeal to everybody.
Yeah, no, I could see that. And I'm sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm sure they're going to be respectful to most all audiences. And since we're on the topic, I heard this a few months ago in a different podcast that I watch, a Red Team Review and Preston Jacobs. They're Game of Thrones YouTubers, and I watched their podcasts, and they mentioned how some people are theorizing that the kind of medieval themed dramas and action shows and movies that they're on a decline as of now, because we've had such I guess a high with them as far as general audiences are concerned over the past 20 years since Lord of the Rings came out, since the Fellowship of the Ring. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the medieval audience is kind of declining at all, or kind of fantasy audience in general? Do you think that's in a decline at all?
I don't think so. I mean, It's really hard to come up with like a lot of concrete examples, because I feel like there's not a lot of fantasy content, or at least like big budget fantasy content that comes out very frequently. I think the last massive budget fantasy content was, of course, the Hobbit series. And the reason that flopped is not because fantasy doesn't appeal. And it didn't even flop. The reason reason that people don't look on that with, the same light that they look on the Lord of the Rings series is not because, they're bored of fantasy. It's because they're tired of what was forced at them.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think, Game of Thrones I would consider a fantasy series, and I don't think that even the bad Game of Thrones episodes get so many ratings. It's insane. Like, the worst episode of Game of Thrones is a better performing television like episode than thousands and thousands of other series would ever hope to imagine.
That's fair. I mean, and that's kind of what happens when there is a lot of a certain genre coming out, fantasy, medieval, all of that is, you're going to have some things that might not perform as highly as others, kind of like the Hobbit movies with the Lord of the Rings, or even in some people's eyes, like the Hobbit movies and some episodes of Game of Thrones. It's like you're going to have this kind of, your audience isn't going to be completely, desensitized to what they're watching. They're still going to be paying attention. They're still going to be caring about what they're watching. And like you said, it's not that it's like there's too much of a genre going on. It's just that they're paying attention, It's not that they're getting annoyed with how much there is. It's just maybe they're getting annoyed with how mediocre it is, to some degree, or parts of it are mediocre.
And when you look at sci-fi, so traditionally sci-fi and fantasy are looped together. Yeah. When you look at both of those genres as far as major films or major television shows, this is something that fantasy and sci-fi has over, for instance, just like classic drama action movie, is that you can go literally anywhere with it. Yeah. I would never in 1,000 years classify Lord of the Rings in like the same genre as Harry Potter. They're just so different in so many ways, but they're both under the fantasy genre.
That's true.
And so I think that's something that fantasy has going for it, is that you can't, if something gets stale, you can move to a different idea.
That's true. Yeah. And I think, again, like these stories of Star Wars or Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and they're pretty timeless stories. Sure, interest for the general audience might come and go with these things. And I think it kind of does swing like a pendulum a little bit, where it's like, early 2000s, Lord of the Rings, all of that. And then after the hype with the movies died down because the movies were 4, 5, 6 years old, and then it kind of yeah, it died down, and then it came back up with the Hobbit movies, and it doesn't mean that every member of that audience will be sick of it or will be, you know, not as interested and invested in it as they once were, because again, like, we got video games in between both trilogies for the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, so yeah, it's just kind of members of it, and I think the general audience, it'll swing here, it'll swing there. It's really kind of what Hollywood's up to at a certain point, and then yeah, they just kind of will go with that. You know, if it gets too much one way, then they'll push for it to go a different genre, and that's probably how it'll continue to be. So yeah, no, I agree. It's not that it's probably dying down or anything. And that's the thing. I really hope it isn't, especially because we're on the cusp of 5 seasons worth of Lord of the Rings content. I just hope after Game of Thrones, the medieval fantasy community doesn't just kind of die down a little bit. And even if it does, you have so many dedicated Tolkien fans for it. You know, it'll do well. I think the show will be really good. All right, Ryan, do you have any final thoughts with the Lord of the Rings show news or any of that?
Not really. I'm just excited for the show to come out. Excited for all the Lord of the Rings stuff that's happening pretty soon. Talk about the book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So August 30th, we're getting really close to the Fall of Gondolin book coming out. That'll be Thursday, yeah, August 20th. So I hope you guys are pre-ordering or at least looking forward to it. Yeah, just let me know your thoughts about it as it comes out, all of that. I'm going to cover the Silmarillion's telling of the Fall of Gondolin the week after, the Sunday after, so the 2nd, and then the week after that as well. I'll probably do another 2 parts, just like I did for the Children of Hurin, about the rise and fall of, well, I should just say the Fall of Gondolin, because the rise was many years before. But yeah, the story of Tuor and him coming to Gondolin and all of that good stuff that's told in the Silmarillion about the fall. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about that, Ryan?
I'm excited for adding. I'm always excited to add to the Legendarium, especially when it's coming from like Tolkien himself, basically.
Yeah.
It's undisputed. People that can't really argue about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm just excited for more lore.
Yeah, same here. I'm excited to see what's added and the character moments. The character moments especially, kind of see how Tuor differentiates himself from other members of the House of Hodor, and how the elves are different in Gondolin from other places. Like we'll hopefully we'll see those differences even more. So, well, cool. That's all the Middle Earth news for this month. Hopefully we'll have more coming out of September. So we'll go ahead and we'll start to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This was, I think, our longest podcast overall so far. And I hope
see when the editing gets when the cuts come out.
Thank you guys for sticking with us through all of this, and I hope you guys enjoyed these conversations, these topics that kind of came through. I felt like there were some interesting things, a lot of interesting things that came up today. So if you guys have any comments about them, please leave them in the comments section. Feel free to message me on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, email me. Call me if you have my number. I don't know.
I'll give you a call.
Yeah. Ryan's got my number. All the good stuff. And let me know your thoughts.
Thank you so much for watching, for supporting the channel. If you got any questions, just throw them by.
Yeah. And thank you, Ryan, for joining me once again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you guys for joining us on Patreon. The support, the donations, they mean so much. And I'll see you all again next month. As always, thank you all so much for joining us on this adventure. Until the next one, my friends.